Mill was competing for the title of the best pastry in the world, but he died in an accident. God then decided to reincarnate him in another world as Pastry Mill, the son of a noble with an S-rank magic. The confrontation against the bandits finally ended. Pa's mother and sister received the news and asked about Pa's and his father's safety. The father was okay, but Pa's arm was injured. Her mother gets on her knees, worried about her young son, but she is relieved to know it's only a scratch. Pa's sister is curious why the two haven't come back yet, but as we know, Pa is worried about other stuff. He's dividing the food supplies between the villagers to ensure their sustenance. Pa then narrates his story about his reincarnation as the son of a poor noble, and his only goal in life is to fill this world with sweets. The guards and villagers are taking care of the restrained bandits, planning to send them to another county. Pa's father wants the noble from that county to claim that they've dealt with the bandits. They will lose the glory, but they will get something in return from the Lord. His retainer wonders what they will get, but Pa's father reveals they need to negotiate first. He at least wants compensation for the battle expenses and losses suffered. As father then starts awarding the training guards and villagers for their bravery with weapons and silver coins, even Pa's little friends are called up and rewarded for assisting Pa. The two happily walk home, but Pa comes running to help them carry the goods. He compliments their work, but they stay humble, claiming that they just threw rocks. Pa is happy that nobody lost their life and that they can return to their usual way. The kids return home and proudly show their mothers how they were rewarded for their help. Mark's mother is happy that he managed to come back safely, yet she asks Pa if Mark didn't make any trouble. Pa explains they were pretty good, and both Mark and Lumi will be the future of their land. Lumi's grandfather also shows his affection, proud that Lumi was helping the lord of the land and his son, despite her age. Villagers come in to celebrate the victory. Mark is hyped up that he was about to get his first drink until he gets slapped with a cup of milk amidst the celebration. Pa thinks that now that this is over, he can focus on making more sweets. He thinks about making a bonka pie to celebrate and lists the ingredients he needs, but he misses cinnamon. Mark and Lumi step outside because their families usually yell at them, but they're not praising them. But Pa's life without a stupid friend. Mark wonders what they did to the bandits. Lumi reveals they're restrained in the main village shed, and that's when stupid Mark decides to check them out because as a future Pa's retainer, he needs to keep an eye on the bandits. Lumi agrees and follows him. The adults tell them that it's not safe and to go back, but Mark pulls Lumi into the bushes and throws pebbles to distract the adults. They take the chance to get inside the shed, just to get scared by the bandits' leader. The leader reveals that Mark now has his sword and asks how he got it. Mark is totally scared and falls under the bandit's manipulation. The bandit says that he will die once he gets turned in, so he wants to teach Mark how to use the full power of his magic sword. Mark remembers that Pa can use magic and wishes to help him. The bandit tells Mark to draw the sword and hold it with his hands. Mark follows the instructions, and the bandit compliments him, calling him a natural. Lumi tries to call Mark off, but he ignores her. The bandit frees himself from the ropes and tells Mark to get closer to learn the magic words. It's more a magic kick to the gut, sending the stupid kid flying away. The bandit gets up and stabs Lumi, all because of a stupid greedy kid. Blood starts to flow from her wound, and the guards come back to check the noise. The bandit takes Mark hostage to escape. One of the guards alerts the villagers that Lumi is injured. That's when Pa realizes his friends are a whole new level of stupid and rushes to the place. The bandit tries to threaten the guards, telling them he will cut Mark's head off, as if he needed to. The guards send more alerts and surround him. What they're still afraid of? Mark being injured in the bandits' escape on a horse. Lumi is barely managing to survive until Pa arrives. He instructs the guards on how to deal with the injury and asks where the bandit went. He finds out the directions and follows him on his horse. Pa concludes that he can use the anti-bandit traps in the area to his advantage, and if he's in a direct confrontation, he can use his magic to copy the wound back to the bandit. But he manages to realize that he can copy anything he has ever seen. Meanwhile, Pa's father finds out what happened and is mad with the guards for not stopping Pa. Making the decision to save his son, Casserole makes his decision to follow him with his retainer, Fuel. Fuel is worried that the bandit could have companions waiting and turn the tables. Fuel then tells Casserole to stay back to assure the villagers, while he uses his magic to find Pa in the forest. Mark is struggling to free himself from the bandit. Suddenly, they fall onto a trap, allowing Pa to catch up to them. The bandit is annoyed because of the trap and prepares to fight. Pa remembers his father's teachings about how to use a sword, but he's still a kid. He cannot fight an adult. The bandit is aware that Pa's magic can replicate any wound he takes, so he just wants to finish Pa in a single blow. Pa is constantly pushed back until he gets near Mark. The stupid kid tells Pa to abandon him. At this point, he would, but Pa is different. He will never abandon his friends. The bandit is pretty tired of this and breaks Pa's sword, followed by an attack to cut Pa in half. At this moment, Pa uses his magic. Meanwhile, Fuel is using his magic to scout the area and find Pa, but the only thing he manages to find is Pa's broken sword. He slowly walks back without knowing how to tell Casserole that he lost his son. Yet, when he gets inside Casserole's house, he finds Pa sitting on his mother's lap. Fuel is shocked and screams. Casserole explains Pa got back with Mark a while ago, but he doesn't know the details. Fuel doesn't understand how he missed Pa coming back. He even used his magic to scout the area. Casserole forces Pa to explain what happened, yet Pa says that it's complicated to make it short. Pa explains he simply copied his father's teleportation magic. Everyone is confused. Pa explains his magic can copy what he sees into something, so he copied his father's magic into his body and teleported out with Mark. Casserole understands the situation but still scolds Pa. He forbids him from revealing that he can use other people's magic or use those spells in public. Using spells in a battle can be dangerous, and he could get himself killed very quickly. Pa knew this would happen, and that's why he didn't want to reveal. After calming down, Casserole explains to Fuel that people could aim for Pa. His ability to copy magic makes others target him to turn him into a human weapon. The worst part is that the bandit managed to get away and could reveal that secret. Pa then goes out to meet Mark and reveals that Lumi will survive. Mark is super depressed, but Pa tries to convince him to visit her together. Mark blames himself for not hearing them. If he did, she would never get hurt. Pa tries to comfort him, telling him to apologize. He drags Mark to visit her, but she's quite smiley despite the injury. She reveals that she's okay but she isn't allowed to go out and play. Pa then decides to use the kitchen to give Mark and Lumi some time alone. Actually, Pa only cares about the sweet he is going to make while Mark is all gloomy, depressed, stupid boy. Pa thinks that he can bring smiles to everyone's faces by cooking, so he decides to make his banka pie. He carefully prepares it to the detail while Mark properly apologizes to Lumi, but she's freaked out by the apology. The mood becomes quite weird between the two. Mark is apologizing, Lumi doesn't really care until Pa comes back literally 5 minutes later with a banka pie. The two start drooling. They never saw a banka pie in their lives. Pa explains this is his way to make Lumi feel better and also cheer Mark up. The two start eating it like savages, and Lumi mentions that it makes her feel like she isn't wounded anymore. But Pa has another surprise, slices of banka pie with honey. The two kids hate it because the flavor is the opposite of the pie. Pa then pulls out his inner Socrates. He explains that every banka tastes different, and he needs to find harmony in flavors. Pa compares it to people, explaining that Mark has unique traits, and he will find a way to make those traits shine. The lesson he really wants to give is that failing at something only means that he can learn, work hard, and improve. Mark finally cheers up, until Lumi's father steps into the room. This guy literally looks like the demon lord, demanding Mark to feel responsible for injuring Lumi. Turns out, he only wants to set up a marriage between the two. Mark ends up flustered and doesn't know how to react. Yet when Lumi is asked about her view, she's like, sure, why not? Mark is still trying to recover, and Lumi gives some banka pie to her father. Mark notices there's only one last slice remaining and asks about his share. Lumi playfully replies that the husband's assets belong to the wife, so she will take it. Pa then realizes that his theory was true, sweets bring smiles to faces,